Hello, my friends. If you're new to gorlworld and you've been hearing Amberlynn talk about her BPD diagnosis, and then you hear reaction channels talking about how it's fake or she's self-diagnosed, you may feel some sympathy for Amberlynn, and you may wonder, why on earth do we feel that way? How could we possibly know? Well, in this video, we're going to sort of take a look at Amberlynn's history of diagnoses and her general behavior when it comes to mental health and just her overall medical issues. So if you'd like to like and subscribe, that would literally be hectic. I'm not gonna lie. Lately, we've been having a lot of conversations about Amberlynn Reid and her diagnosis of BPD, right? She keeps claiming she's been diagnosed, but then she'll let little things slip here and there that make it seem pretty obvious that she wasn't, along with the fact that Beck has just flat out said that Amber would spend a lot of time Googling all of her symptoms and just sort of pick what sounded right to her and say that she has that.
She never admitted to lying about a disorder, but I think that's because she genuinely believes that she has every single one that she says she has. She would self-diagnose constantly based on how she felt and a few Google searches. She was constantly worried about every symptom she had, so she would always come up with a diagnosis on her own for each one. It's a bad habit and not a good way to find out what's really going on with you. She would go to the ER so often, but rarely or never go to a primary care physician, OBGYN, psychologist, or therapist who could have been much more helpful. And as we know, when she would go see those doctors, it would just be a few times before she would never go again.
It's pretty clear when she started her channel, she just needed attention. She has been posting basically nothing for 11 years. You know, she has posted sitting around, talking about nothing. And she was barely getting any views, but even just a few people watching gave her the attention that she wanted. But there is an old video. And again, this is back before she was really getting hardly any views at all. I would say probably 100, maybe. We've all heard about this diagnosis. This video is called 50 Random Facts About Me. So listen for number 2.
Remember, there's 50 facts, so hold on to your seat. 1. Raw tomatoes make me gag unless they're in salsa. 2. I have ASMR.
So yes, she actually said on a video that she has ASMR.
In your early videos, you said you had ASMR. What did that mean?
I was trolling. Yeah. And then it's moments like this where I'm like, damn, I have to live with this, where people actually think that I'm a liar and I said I was diagnosed with ASMR.
In that clip, Amber said she was trolling. Back in that clip, she barely had any views. There was nobody to troll. She states in an Ask FM post that she has ASMR. And says, so I watch videos on YouTube that will relax me. Again, this is April 2014. She barely had any viewers. In 2016, she states, I would flip through pages, do dishes, crinkle sounds, etc. Those are all noises people with ASMR enjoy. 2016, yeah, maybe she was trolling. She had enough people to troll then. So again, maybe I'm being overly suspicious. Maybe she was diagnosed with ASMR. But if that was true, why did she post this? Not many people know what ASMR is, which is shocking to me, but I have had it since I was a little girl. ASMR videos are great to watch if you are lucky enough to be diagnosed, like I am. She posted this to Tumblr in October of 2013. She didn't start YouTube till November of 2013.
So as far back as 2013, she was saying, I have this particular mental illness. I have this, I have that. Because she loves that feeling of gaining sympathy from people. Trying to get sympathy goes way back. At the very beginning of her channel, she was doing a squat challenge. She had been trying to do squats every day for however many days. And then she gets on and says this.
I needed to talk to you about something. So to do that, I have to tell you a story first. About 2 months ago, I started having really bad back pain, and it was excruciating. It was excruciating to the point of I couldn't even walk. I physically couldn't walk. I know people say that sometimes to exaggerate, because, I mean, who doesn't? But I couldn't walk. It was pretty pathetic. I was bound to one seat and I could not straighten my body. My left hip was 10 times the size of my right hip. Regular medicine wasn't helping, and I just didn't know what was happening. And it just kept getting worse. So, my girlfriend's parents ended up paying for me to go see a orthopedic, I think it was. And I literally was in the room with him for like 2 minutes, and he already knew what was wrong. He told me that my spine was swollen, or I had a bulged disc. And he said the two were very similar in the way of symptoms, and that he was going to prescribe me medicine. If the medicine helped, then that's exactly what it was. So, knowing me, I don't take prescription medication at all. I never have, besides an what's it called? Antibiotic, that's what it's called, sorry. Because of my past and my parents, I am afraid to take prescription drugs.
And then she goes on to explain that because of all this, she can't continue the squat challenge, which is par for the course for Amberlynn. She was using her back pain to get sympathy, but also to give her an excuse to quit a challenge that she had set for herself. She continues to do this kind of thing today. I think she really just loved being able to make a video and get comments of people saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and just get sympathy. You know, that was her drug at that point. And I think it still is. And so now we're going to take a look at some of the diagnoses that Amberlynn has claimed to have over the years. And we're going to start with a compilation by Abigail from about a year ago. At this point, around 2019-ish, it's more than just attention, right? She's not just getting attention, she's getting money online. And the more sympathy she can get, the more money she can get. On the live streams, she makes a lot more money. First of all, she made a lot more money when Beck was on the video with her, but whatever. But she also knows that she gets a lot more money when people are telling her how brave she is and how proud they are of her for speaking her truth, you know, and sharing her diagnoses and things like that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that believe her diagnoses, but here's just a few that she has claimed over the years.
Obviously, I was diagnosed with depression. That is a given. I mean, I've known since I was 9 years old. That is when I was first diagnosed with depression. That hasn't changed, although I will say it's gotten worse. I was diagnosed with anxiety/panic disorder. Obviously, I struggle with so much anxiety. I have panic attacks. I described to her what my panic attacks look like, and it was hard to talk about. I, for one, felt like I was gonna have one just talking about it. When I was younger, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. Out of everything that's wrong with me, having OCD, I feel the most ashamed of. The next one for me is I am bipolar. I have known for a very long time without actually being diagnosed that I am bipolar, and for someone to finally tell me that I am bipolar and I'm going to be put on a mood stabilizer. I can't believe I finally was diagnosed with the right thing, because for so long I was just diagnosed with, oh, you're depressed. I'm noticing that this mood stabilizer is helping me. I had really bad lows with my bipolar, and it's like made me depressed. Kind of detached from a lot in my life.
What type of bipolar do you have? How do you experience mania? Literally in between the two. I used to be so much worse before I started medicine, but I'm bipolar too. And yes, I experience mania. You literally cannot be bipolar 2 and have mania. Mania is strictly to bipolar 1. I do experience mania, as y'all have seen for years now. My bank account has seen it too, unfortunately. I just assumed I was bipolar 2, lol. I was diagnosed with being bipolar, but I never got a number to it. Never cared to. Never felt important to me.
So you can tell that she's just making it up as she goes, right? They say you can't be manic with type 2 bipolar. Oh yeah, I mean, I can. Because let's not forget the belief that they are unique and special as far as the narcissistic personality disorder symptoms, right? We don't want to forget that. And so her bipolar is special bipolar, just like her COVID was special COVID. You know, even though she went to the doctor and the doctor said, it's fine, you're going to be fine, it's COVID. She kept saying these are weird COVID symptoms when they were just COVID symptoms.
I have had high fever. I've had the shivers. I have been super sweaty and then all of a sudden super cold. I've had loss of appetite. I've had nausea, headache, sore throat, swollen and painful lymph nodes, body aches, stuffy nose, runny nose, cough, sneezing, chest pain like no other. My breathing is worse than usual. Some of my weirdest symptoms is just like I feel delirious, and I think it's just due to like the on and off fever, which I currently don't have now. I also feel like super fatigued, but then at the same time I get random like bouts of just like energy. I'm just feeling extremely anxious. I don't know if it's like those numbers making me anxious and like the weird COVID symptoms that I'm having, or if it's like anxiety.
And of course, her PTSD is very special PTSD.
I have PTSD. When you do it and you get the score, you have PTSD if it's like in between like 31 to 33, and mine was 47.
And we can't talk about her having special problems without talking about her dangling ankle. She fell off the sidewalk, kind of rolled her ankle, and milked it for all it was worth. She made several videos about it, and she treated it like it was some sort of severe medical trauma.
Walking on a sidewalk, and half of my foot did not reach the sidewalk, and I ended up falling.
I don't know, I just feel so disconnected.
The fucking noise that my ankle made. I don't think I'll ever forget that noise. And I was by myself. I just felt so scared. I looked down at the ankle that made that noise, and my foot was just like dangling.
So that brings us to her BPD diagnosis. In her live stream, she said that she had seen a psychologist while she was preparing for weight loss surgery, which I'm not sure I buy that, but she said she had seen a psychologist. They had told her that she met basically all the criteria, or most of the criteria for BPD, and that you need to see a specialist, and then she never went to the specialist. Now, we go back to shortly after her and Jade broke up, and she tells a similar story, but she says that the psychologist that she saw while preparing for weight loss surgery actually diagnosed her.
A little bit of a backstory is, as you guys remember, I had to do 12 sessions of therapy to get weight loss surgery because I was trying to do that. And then I did the 12 sessions, and then I continued seeing the same therapist, actually psychologist. I liked him a lot, so I stayed. And then remember when I told you guys, okay, well, I have to go to a new psychologist who actually specializes in something different, and I didn't feel comfortable saying what it was. I actually only got to see that psychologist one time because I ended up moving to a completely different state, and I wasn't able to keep the same psychologist, obviously. But I guess now is the time to say, I really did not want to share this. I don't know why, but I think it's something that, like, out of the diagnoses I've got my whole life ever since I was 9, which I was 9 and diagnosed with depression for the first time because, like, I was in foster care, and just no 9-year-old should ever be diagnosed with that. But since then, you know, I've been diagnosed with OCD, I've been diagnosed with PTSD, bipolar, and those things were like so much easier for me to accept, and I don't really know why. I was actually diagnosed on my 19th session with my psychologist with borderline personality disorder. And for some reason, I had a hard time accepting that.
If I had to guess, when she's telling this story, she had probably recently heard about BPD and started talking about it. But to make herself seem more like a victim or somebody who should garner sympathy or pity, she then pretends like she's so ashamed of it. She doesn't want to admit that she has it because that makes her seem more like a sympathetic figure.
And still have a hard time accepting that because it's obvious. It's obvious that I have borderline personality disorder, and it's something that, like, I always purposely pushed away. Like, people would contact me and be like, you know, you seem like you have BPD, and I just automatically would shut them down and be like, nope.
Something interesting that Amberlynn said in her recent live stream, I like to call it the lie stream, where she basically just lied about Beck for 2.5 hours. Somebody asked her what kind of BPD she has. Just listen to her response and then think about what she's doing right now, okay? So just let's watch what she says when somebody asks her what type of BPD she has.
I'm curious, I also have BPD, and do you know what type of BPD you have? I have discouraged. Yes, discouraged, and hold on. What was the other one called? Hold on a second. I'm actually going to be talking about this. Hold on. Discouraged is my, like, the top one, because that's the one that I tested the highest for. Where is it? Oh, this ain't it. This ain't it. Oh, and I learned about, oh my God, I cannot even believe I learned about what attachment style I am. And I'm like, what is going on? So there's 4 types of BPD. Discouraged and self-destructive. So discouraged, I scored like the highest, and then the second highest was the self-destructive.
So the first thing she does is just repeat the type that the person said that they have, and then goes to look at her book. She's like, oh, yeah, I remember seeing that in my book. And then she looks it up. BPD is the thing she talks about most on her channel other than food. You would think that she would just know right off the bat, without having to think about it, what type she is. Now, the 4 types are impulsive, discouraged, petulant, and self-destructive. Okay? She said discouraged because I'm guessing just because that person said discouraged. And of course she picked self-destructive because she always wants to feel like she's tragic. You know, she got that tragic t-shirt and she constantly says she's tragic. But she likes to make you think that she's at war with herself, that she's just sad, you know, that she wants you to feel sorry for her. And that's why she has talked about having self-harm tendencies. So my guess is she had seen those types, and I think she thought that self-destructive sounded like it would garner a lot of sympathy, you know? And you may be thinking, well, maybe she was really diagnosed. Well, we do have evidence of her lying about being diagnosed with something.
I suffer with binge eating, which I do want to talk to you guys about because I was officially diagnosed with binge eating disorder by my therapist. I do have an online therapist, which works for me, for someone who, you know, doesn't drive. And I thought this would work for me also because I was super nervous to see a therapist, and this is a 24/7 therapist. If you guys have ever heard of betterhelp.com, that is currently what I am using, and you guys should definitely check that out.
And of course, as you can see, and you may already know, but BetterHelp cannot diagnose anything. So later she did admit that she lied about that and said that the therapist said it sounded like she had BED, and she just ran with it. And that may sound familiar because that's exactly what Beck said that she did the whole time they were together. So this is a pattern of behavior.
That was one of the times that I was in the children's shelter, and my therapist, it might have been in passing, but she did say this is binge eating disorder. I never got a pamphlet that said, oh, you have binge eating disorder or anything like that, but she did tell me this is binge eating disorder. And we did spend a couple weeks talking about it. So maybe as a 16-year-old, I took that and I ran with it.
And real quick, I want to revisit something she said in her BPD diagnosis video.
Borderline personality disorder, there isn't really a medicine for that. You have to work.
Speaking of work, and how much effort it takes to heal, as amberlynn likes to say, I got an email from somebody who has some pretty good information on BPD in general, and one really popular type of treatment for BPD, it's the DBT treatment. And you'll recognize that from one of the workbooks that amberlynn has been working on, that she says that was recommended to her by her therapist. But, you know, she also said it was recommended to her by a professional. So, whatever. Now, I don't have a real way to vet this person, so I can't guarantee that everything that they say is 100% accurate. But it sounds like they know what they're talking about, and they've been through it, and they wanted to share what amberlynn would actually be going through if she was doing DBT therapy. Now, right now, amberlynn claims to be doing EMDR therapy, which is a type of psychotherapy primarily used to help process traumatic memories and resolve emotional distress. And it's used often for like PTSD and stuff like that. If you search treatments for BPD, EMDR does not come up, or at least it's not among the top results. She still claims to have PTSD, and that's really what EMDR is for. So I don't know what to even make of that, right? She is claiming that she has BPD and that they're doing treatment for BPD, but then she's doing the treatment for PTSD. So, and maybe it can work for both, but again, I don't know really what to say about that other than just there's the information. She's saying she's doing EMDR. That is for PTSD. So, whatever. And now let's go take a look at that email. So, let's see what they have to say. Hello, sir. Hello. I hope this letter finds you well. I'm a fan of your channel. Well, thank you. It seems impossible to write briefly about the problems with Amber and BPD. I understand. It seems like we could go on forever. This email has spanned paragraphs before being rewritten out of respect for your time. Well, I appreciate that. BPD can be so severe that it required a woman, Marcia Linehan, suffering with that group of behavioral and emotional symptoms. So it sounds like what they're saying here is that it's not necessarily a mental illness, right? It's a grouping of behavioral and emotional symptoms. So that's why a lot of people say it can be hard to diagnose, because it does have a lot of overlap with other illnesses and other issues, right? NPD is probably one of them. So it took Marcia suffering with those symptoms herself to devise a new treatment as a doctor of psychology. That treatment, DBT, is life-changing for those who need it and complete it. The other BPD, bipolar disorder, is also effectively treated with DBT. And the two are often misdiagnosed for one another. Okay, so Amber has claimed to be diagnosed with bipolar, and now she's claiming to be diagnosed with BPD. So that makes sense. And it says, that's just a little trivia for your back pocket. When Amber inevitably consumes an AI-generated statement that confuses the two, then serves it up half-digested on YouTube. Now, just so we're clear, I am not claiming to be an expert about any of this stuff. I'm just showing you what I've read, what I've seen. You can make your own decisions. So, this is where it gets interesting. DBT is 1 year of weekly, separate group therapy and individual therapy appointments. So it is a commitment. There are professionals in the group room maintaining standards of conduct, including non-judgmental speech. Many patients are treatment resistant. Now, if amberlynn did have BPD, or if she does, because I do think it is possible, she definitely has NPD, but it is possible that she could also have some forms of BPD or some symptoms of BPD. If she were to try DBT therapy, I think she would be treatment resistant, because I don't think she would take kindly to anybody telling her what to do. Now it says they fail to complete the entire year, which we know Amber could never complete a year of anything. Providers who are presented with the claim that a patient has completed DBT will often confirm you completed the program. You're right. You don't just get a book and do what it says. That's a callback to when Amber talked about she got these workbooks and she's just been working through them.
So as you guys probably remember, I got recommended by a professional 2 borderline personality disorder books. And instead of doing both at the same time, because I don't want to get overwhelmed on top of doing therapy, I decided to start with this one.
She's not really talking about how her therapist is suggesting that she do this or that. The psychologist or the therapist is actually supposed to go through it with you. But Amber's just sort of filling it out willy-nilly. A professional is required to work with the patient to help identify the problems, select the tools that are effective for them, and reason through the challenges with building the tools, skills, and habits that reduce the undesirable behaviors and feelings. So she can't do it by herself. She can't just do a workbook and be cool. You know, she has to be working with the psychologist, or the imaginary psychologist for Amber, and they have to go like step by step together to figure out what's working and what's not. And as they go, they tweak it to make sure that the behaviors are being addressed and being corrected. A person with these needs is as capable of calibrating their own program as a child is, meaning they're not. I completed the entire year 7 years ago. So this person actually completed the program 7 years ago. It was not my first attempt. That means it's not easy. After this much hard work, I might only now be starting to build a couple of tools. So, does that sound like something Amber could ever stick with? Absolutely not. So even if she is 100% right and she has been diagnosed with BPD and that's all she's been diagnosed with and that's all she needs to heal from, she's screwed, you know? But, I still am pretty sure she has just read the symptoms and decided that's her. What Amber is doing is so insulting to the people who have done the labor of modifying our thoughts and behaviors. She has alluded to so carefully the potential for a history of self-harm threats as desperate means of preventing abandonment. The thing is, even if she has done that, it's as much a cruel manipulation as when anybody does it. It would not necessarily validate a BPD diagnosis. And then even if it did, she's personally responsible for all of her own behavior, as everyone is. And so long as she neglects treatment, she is agreeing to continue the same patterns. Absolutely. Threatening self-harm to avoid abandonment is absolutely manipulation. And shame on Amberlynn for saying, yeah, I mean, that's just how I roll because I got BPD. I found out I have BPD, so that explains why I do that, you know? She's so flippant about it. And she likes to say that taking accountability is basically just admitting that you've done a thing. But you don't really take accountability if you don't change the behavior. I have also not heard of many earth-shattering meltdowns of the sort that any reasonable person would consider calling the police. Sure, we can observe with some certainty that she's much more vindictive and aggressive off camera, but the substance and spirit of her performance seems to indicate that she is more like an NPD trying to imitate BPD. That is brilliant. That is perfect. That is exactly what I feel. And I keep pointing towards NPD, and I get a lot of comments saying it can be both. Absolutely. And I agree that there's probably some overlap, but I think she is NPD heavy. Like heavy, no pun intended. She is hard NPD trying desperately to convince everybody that it's BPD. You know, it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. She's NPD in BPD's clothing. She describes everything with an exaggerated flair, never failing to attach an extra descriptor to every emotion and experience. Yeah, her weird COVID symptoms that were just COVID symptoms. But she does so superficially. She seems to have read that people with BPD experience their emotions very intensely, because that's her MO. The name for BPD has been contested a bit over time. One term I'm fond of is emotional dysregulation disorder. And just so we're on the same page here at Cleveland Clinic, what is emotional dysregulation? Emotional dysregulation is a mental health symptom that involves trouble controlling your emotions and how you act on those feelings. To those around you, your emotions and reactions will seem out of proportion compared to what you're reacting to. What Amber seems unable to grasp is that what she says does not match with her apparent experience. Simply stating, "I'm as sad as the saddest person who ever cried," in no way indicates that to be an authentic experience. Just like when she says, I'm taking accountability. I have taken accountability for that without doing any of the work, without actually taking accountability. But also, it's just the exaggeration to make her experience seem extreme, whether it is or not. And 99% of the time it's not, but she has to convince you that it is. Contrast with an emotionally dysregulated heartbreak, where there will be wailing, sobbing, screaming, and potentially destruction. It's the difference between an entitled, self-righteous egomaniac, NPD, and a desperate, out-of-control juvenile. A good example is if you've ever seen Cyrax at peak rage. Now, I am not super familiar with Cyrax. I know a little bit about him, so I know who you're talking about, but I'm not as familiar with him as I am with like Amberlynn Reed and Darkside Phil, Wings of Redemption to an extent, Boogie 2988, and Glitter and Lasers is starting to really feel like a lolcow to me, so I kind of have an idea what you're talking about. That's what BPD looks like, they said. The biggest problem is that Amber will never see what she does as strictly her responsibility. 100%. That's why in her Taking Accountability live stream, she had little nuggets and little sections where she seemed to take accountability for stuff, but they were always things that she could explain away with either her hysterectomy or her BPD, but never really taking full accountability, because even when she said, I shouldn't have done that, it was always the behaviors that she could blame on other things. Even if she doesn't say it, there were a few times when she actually made an apology, said, I shouldn't have acted that way, and didn't say it was because of my BPD. But in her mind, you know that's why she's able to take accountability for those things, because in her mind, it's explained away, you know. I fear that the more she learns about mental illness, the more skilled she will be at manipulating others. That is a scary thought. That I've thought about that too, because it's almost like now that she's got BPD in her arsenal, you know, she's got the information of BPD to use against people and to use as a crutch or as an excuse, right? That is scary, because now she can really lay on the manipulation by saying, I'm so sorry. It'll never happen again. It was my BPD. And her significant others or her family or whoever will have an even harder time getting the help that they need. I hope for successful results in your channel and your life. Thank you. Thank you for the caring and entertaining content. Well, I appreciate that very much. You are very well spoken. Holy moly. This was an incredible read. I really enjoyed it. And you said some stuff that as I was reading, I was like, I wish I could have said things like that. You know, I wish that I had thought of it that way or been able to explain it that way. So no, absolutely. Thank you. That was amazing. So her BPD diagnosis is very reminiscent of all of the other diagnoses that she has said, right? She's got a great story and a great setup, and she talks about the doctors and how they told her all this stuff. But she doesn't have all of that. She can't have all of it, you know? And yes, there could be some overlap of symptoms and diagnoses, but we have a pattern of behavior and a lot of evidence pointing towards her self-diagnosing. So personally, I'm going to believe Beck that when Amber feels like she has something, or if she finds something on TikTok or something online that she thinks can garner her some attention or sympathy, I think she Googles it and either notices some similarities between her and the symptoms that she reads, or she just makes herself fit into that little box so that she can then go onto her YouTube channel and say, guys, you won't believe what I've got. It's a lot like the people on TikTok that fake dissociative identity disorder. You will find on TikTok an unlimited number of people faking DID. Now, can you prove that they're faking it? No, but I mean, it's pretty obvious.
I was kind of nervous to ask, but which one of you's fronting right now? I don't really know right now. How can you not know? Like, I feel like it would be kind of obvious, right? Yeah, but multiple people can front at once, so it gets really fucking jumbled. So how do you figure it out? Process of elimination, mostly. How does that work? Okay, so the idea of meditating right now sounds really fucking boring, so I know that I'm not Eleanor because that's like her favorite shit to do. From our voice, definitely not our little. And I really like horror movies, so that eliminates Isa because she fucking hates them. So you're either Lila or Jasper. Yeah, and we're the most similar, so I think it's harder to differentiate there. So then who are you? Well, now I know that I'm Lila because he is naturally a blonde. And I like having dark hair. So, there. That sounds super fucking confusing. Oh yeah.
I don't care if this was supposed to be a genuine question. This is full of ignorance. First of all, I am not a dog. We have a non-human alter in our system. He is a child. No. Please stop sexualizing our alters.
They do it for attention. They do it because they know they're going to get responses, and a lot of them are teenagers or young adults that just don't get attention. They don't get enough of it. And so they found that they can get that attention that they want so much on the internet. And that's something Amberlynn Reed has been doing her entire career on YouTube, scratching that itch, filling that need, that void in her that just craves attention, craves that admiration. She has to have it. And she knows that the best way to get it is to garner sympathy. And the best way to get that is to talk about mental health or mental illnesses, whether she has them or not. Now, clearly there's something wrong. She's definitely got some kind of mental illness, but she's just never been properly diagnosed, in my opinion. So, can we prove that she's faking or that she's self-diagnosed? Of course not. And that's kind of the point. She knows we can't prove that she's self-diagnosing, and she knows a lot of people will just believe her. But I think just given her past, I think it's pretty obvious. Anyway, I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.